It's a Monday. Welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. As Christmas is coming, we'll talk about the possibilities of a white Christmas. And there are some areas that could get that. The most active weather is going to be the heat, really. There's no other way to describe it come Christmas in the Central Plains. And also the wet weather out west that comes in the form of rain and also snow. Let's dive into it. Hello, everyone. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We'll start by looking at the mean 500 millibar flow for this week. Starts today and goes through this coming Sunday after Christmas. And what you're seeing is a 500 millibar flow. It's in the middle part of the troposphere where all the weather happens, and it really indicates a ridge of high pressure that dominates the country, really. And when you see these orange colors, that just means that these actual height values are high and also displaced northward more than they normally would be. This has a direct impact on temperature, and you can see the readings here. These are the temperature anomalies. How far away from normal are they? And we're talking about 20 and 30 degree temperature anomalies on average for the entire week. There are actually higher amounts any given day for these parts of the central and southern plains as well. And the snowfall rate is almost non-existent, a little bit below what you should see. And having said that, though, we'll keep an eye on New England and see what can happen out there. And the snowfall rates are excessively high due to the jet stream coming on shore like this in the Pacific Northwest. Let's take a look at the surface. Visible satellite loop in the middle part of the afternoon here shows basically a ridge of high pressure. You can just follow the clouds to find that out here. We had some low clouds in Missouri and Arkansas that have moved on to the east during the day today. And this is another atmospheric river setting up right here through California. And you'll see the results of that. Nearly the entire state is under a flood watch. 500 millibar flow laid on top of that. We have, again, a developing large ridge of high pressure across almost all of the central part of the country, really all the way up into southern Canada. And you can see the 500 millibar flow is coming ashore in California. This is going to lead to trouble, heavy rains, heavy snows. Meanwhile, this is a balmy pattern of weather for the next couple of days for the central plains. And only this corner of the country here might get fed enough cold air to make a difference for snowfall up in New England. Take a look at the surface isobars and the temperatures. The temperatures are filled in colors, and the isobars are in black. This is model data assumed to be mostly correct at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, and it is. A little bit of weak low pressure there on Nebraska-South Dakota border. High pressure is finally leaving the East Coast, centered there around North Carolina and Virginia. Meanwhile, the plains seeing a recovering temperature pattern. It was 65 degrees projected in Oklahoma City at 5. That's at 5 o'clock in the evening, so that's a pretty warm pattern of air that's starting to take over the U.S. here now and for the next several days. Well, the last of the lake effect snows are evident. If you look at the snow reports for the last 24 hours, you see 3 to 4 inch totals north of Syracuse, New York, but you're starting to see totals 10 to maybe 10 inches to maybe a foot of snow in areas northeast of Syracuse and also to the northwest of Rome, right in that area. So the yellow dot indicates 8 to 12 inches of snow if you look at the graph on the upper right. Got a webcam to show you there from Camden, New York, and that general area there. So it'll be chilly enough there to keep that a white Christmas. It depends on your definition. Usually people are really picky. Does a white Christmas mean it's white that morning because of previous snowfall, or does it have to be fresh and fall overnight into Christmas Day? Okay, that's the ideal scenario, especially if it starts snowing on Christmas Eve. But if you're talking about probabilities of that happening, that becomes more and more of a long shot because that requires an isolated storm, obviously. So that's harder to get. But getting snow on the ground or a storm that happens at or maybe a little bit before Christmas, that's a possibility. Here's the National Weather Service forecast for New England. And you're starting to see areas here. 6 inches would be the yellow. So areas of coastal Maine. So in other words, the air is coming in off the continent like this, so cold enough so that we can get snow on the coast. If it's a developing low, sometimes we get warmth coming in and it kind of pushes that rain snow line inward. That's not the case with this particular snow. This is through Christmas morning at 6 a.m. Central Time, I believe. So yeah, some pretty good snows up there, and that would be kind of in following with the movie White Christmas, right? Which was a lodger somewhere in New England. I'm not sure. I'm sure the movie details that, and there's probably an answer on the internet somewhere. But anyway, it kind of mirrors that. That's kind of interesting. And there are advisories in effect for much of the central and eastern part of New York, except at lower elevations. Now, sometimes these weather services offices don't always agree or coordinate on this. So as you saw by what I just showed you, you might want to consider these areas under a winter weather advisory as well. And a winter storm watch, where that maximum of snow around Augusta, Maine, that I just showed you is indicated. And again, that's between now and Christmas morning. Now, if we go out west, it's all mountain snow here. The Sierra Nevada is lit up. If you start seeing that purple color, that starts at 2 feet and goes up. So I see 60-inch snowfalls. There might even be, is there a 72 in there? I don't think so. There might be an isolated 72 on one of these mountain peaks somewhere. And there's Sacramento right there. So pretty typical when you have flow coming ashore like that to get snowfall like that. And of course, that is, when they have a good season there, it's not only good for skiers, but it's also good for melting in the spring. That comes right down into these drier Mediterranean climate areas of central California. So they like to see that whenever possible. And it does extend northward into mountainous areas of Idaho, right around Yellowstone, those areas, the Grand Tetons, and also the Cascades in Washington. And as you might expect, they upgraded this to a winter storm warning. It was a winter storm watch earlier today, and it basically kind of mirrors what I showed you on that forecast. Same by going north. You see winter weather advisories in central Idaho, winter storm warnings around Yellowstone, and in those mountains off to the north and northeast of Seattle. As of this morning, there was 19% snow cover in the lower 48. Now, this does show parts of Canada too, so the 19% is really just everything south of the border here. And this in Iowa's the deepest snowfall is still, as of 2 days ago, there was still a foot of snow on the ground in parts of Iowa, but that's going to be rapidly, and I do mean rapidly, diminishing over the next couple of days. Blowtorch coming into Christmas. As far as weather hazards are concerned, it's all really locked up out here. Heavy snows in the mountains, heavy rains. You can see the dates here. It's a range, so it's a 3 to 7 day temperature or weather hazard. But the heavy snows are expected around Christmas and the day after, and the heavy rain, pretty much the same story on the 25th and the 26th. That will still be going on. It'll start before that, but it'll still be going on. If we're looking long-term for snowfall, it's still, the west is hogging the chances here for heavy snow at least, mostly mountain areas. Maybe some of the higher plateau regions there, the western deserts of Colorado, may see a slight risk of some heavy snow in that longer range pattern. That starts on the 30th and goes all the way to January 5th. There is a wet weather portion of that flow onshore in California. Let's take a closer look. This is the total precipitation. So this is liquid. So if it's snow melted, put it in a bucket and then get the answer. So this does show the heavier snows in California. And I'll zoom in on this in a minute. There's valley rain for sure. This is almost all snow, with the exception there might be some freezing precipitation here in parts of Ohio. Next couple of days as that next weather system whips on through. It doesn't look like a big chance. It could happen though. Total precipitation, again, look at this, is amazing. 13 inches of liquid water falling in the Cascades. So that's where you get 70-inch snowfalls from. But areas of Sacramento, 3 inches, 4 inches in some places, possibly, if you go north here. And so this is a pretty serious situation. Flood watch in effect for virtually the entire state of California. Vegas is under a flood watch, as is San Diego, that far south. So it's interesting. Now, this is a hazard concern. I want to show this to you. Typically in the summer, I find these maps hard to find. This is basically the heavy rain hazard. This is the probability of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles of a point. It's pretty typical to see at least one part of the country with a shade of green temporarily. Yellow, I usually wait to even see the slight risk before I even start talking about. But look at these, look at the mountains north of Los Angeles. We're looking at a moderate to high risk of flash flooding in those areas. And this is on Christmas Eve, so a pretty serious situation for those folks. Would not want to see that. And of course, what happens there is, especially after the fires, is there's nothing to hold the ground in place, so mudslides and that type of thing become more common. California is used to that when they're in a wet weather pattern, but it can be exacerbated by either just a heavier rainfall pattern, which this is, or a fire or some other disaster that contributes to that problem. Let's take a look at the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. So this begins the Sunday after Christmas and goes into next week. Still going to be wet in the Four Corners, Arizona, New Mexico, and pretty dry in the northern plains and in much of the southeast. And then finally, let's take a look at those blowtorch temperatures for the rest of this week. So the high temperatures on Tuesday, I record this on Monday, so that's for tomorrow. Again, the colors don't indicate temperatures. They indicate how far above normal we are. So we're looking at readings in the 20 to 30 degree range above the normal highs for this time of year, including 73 in Oklahoma City, almost 80 in Dallas. It will be 80 in Houston. Denver will be a balmy 66 degrees. And again, it's not necessarily about the actual temperature on the thermometer. It's how unusual it is for those folks. So when I look at let's say Grand Rapids, Michigan, right here, 43. I'm sure many people would consider that pretty chilly, but for them, that's a pretty hot temperature for this time of year. That's Tuesday. Then we go ahead to Thursday, Christmas, and this color is almost off the charts. So 30 is this purple on the scale to the left here, and we're looking at readings well above normal. I live in Springfield. That's 75 degree high. If that were to come to pass, it would break our record high by 1 degree, and that was set back in 1889. So long-standing records may fall here. 79 in Tulsa, almost 80 there. Going up to North Dakota, or I should say South Dakota, pure South Dakota, 55 degrees. Again, for them, that's almost unheard of. And then we fast forward again 2 more days to Saturday. There's really no relief here. This is still just as warm. And you'll notice Arctic air is trying to intrude the northern plains there with highs in the teens. And again, parts of New England that contributes to the snow possibilities up there. But for the most part, the country is toasty. And of course, it'll stay that way. This is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, high confidence, darker colors. So this is a 80-90% chance that they believe that it'll be warm in that area right there of Colorado. Again, cool in New England. That'll help support that snow possibility. And if we extend it 2 more days, this is the 30th through the 5th, still much of the country very, very much above normal. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.